If you follow the channel, you know about 6 months ago, I went and picked up a dump truck, a very old dump truck, and attempted to drive it home. If you haven't watched that video, I highly suggest you do, because it went about exactly as you'd expect if you tried to pick something up that had been sitting for 5 years and it hadn't moved. Yep, there it is. That's not a good sign. It did it again. It's probably one of my most underrated videos. It's funny. It's just what you would expect, and you can kind of enjoy my misery. Since then, though, we have cleaned it up for the first time it's probably ever been washed in 5 to 10 years. We also replaced a flywheel and clutch assembly, so it all works now.
We're ready to stab a transmission.
And it's doing pretty good.
No issues yet.
We've been using it off and on for, you know, heavy loads, a lot of dirt work. But now I have a vision for it. So we're gonna head out to the shop and we're gonna start cutting this thing up, because I think it would fit my brand much more if this dump truck was actually a roll-off. Coming in hot. Dump truck to roll-off. Here we go. 5 degrees and Betty White started, no problem. I mean, not no problem. It was a little bit of a but she's good.
It sounds just like the truck. You're good.
Can you believe he wants us to crawl under that death trap? Look at this guy.
So we're gonna get ourselves a safety bar here, because I did find that everything is actually tack welded, which I am happy to see, because I really was afraid this wasn't put together very well. But it is tack welded on the frame of the bed as well. So we still have to make quite a few cuts, which is pretty hard to do with all this stuff if you're trying to do it from underneath.
Oh, it popped.
There we go. Sheesh. I know none of you guys are gonna believe me, but that's where that bad boy landed, of course with safety glasses over this, but it was stuck to my hat. I was wondering where the other half went, so yeah. Still have my neck.
Crazy dude.
Basically now.
I don't want him to be under there. It's at the last breaking point. Is sketchy and stupid. But you can't stop this guy from doing what he wants. He's a maniac. I just hope nothing happens and this video ends up on Reddit.
So they're holding on by a little bit. And then there's one weld over here, which would be ideal for a torch or a plasma cutter, where it's just holding on by the skin of its teeth. So a little bit of wiggling, it might come off. I really have no idea.
Time to lower it.
Yeehaw! So as you can see, this is still quite the project. We have cut nearly every weld and or popped every weld with the excavator by ripping on it like that. I don't want to rip it completely off. Obviously, like I said, it's about 5 degrees outside. the last thing I want to do is rip this thing off and it goes flying off the back or off the side. It sounds like nearly every weld, except for maybe a couple, has been taken care of here. I also can't just tilt it up and drive away because the way the hydraulics are set up, there's kind of like a ledge. It's been notched out. You can kind of see it. So I won't be able to quite just drive away because one of these, so this rail here has been notched out. So we can't just tilt it up and drive away because the next rail would just run right into it. So it would be a super easy way to do it, but that is kind of the problem spot, to just, you know, tilt it and let it roll off. We have to take a minute to clear the parking lot for Keegan. He's got a couple drop-offs he still needs to take care of today. While Keegan's out doing a couple dumpsters, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna run a chain across both sides here. That way I don't end up accidentally sending it into the cab, because that'd be like my biggest fear here. Because if we end up, you know, yanking so many times on this corner, yank, 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 and it finally pops the last weld, the last thing I wanted to do is shoot it right into the cab, because there's not much of a gap here at all. So that's the game plan. I'm going to use more of a chain in the middle, so it more or less lifts. It's not going to have a lot of pressure because obviously the boom's pretty stretched out in here. We don't have a lot of clearance with the ceiling, but again, we're just trying to stay out of those brutal temps outside. So we'll go ahead and adjust this so it is nice and tight, but that's basically the idea. We're getting darn close now. Right now we have cab separation, or bed separation, I'm sorry, from these rails about halfway down the truck. I mean, we're really starting to get somewhere here, and then about right here is where it starts to stick again. A lot of guys are gonna make the comment, why didn't you just disconnect the actual bed assembly, the entire thing? And the whole reason behind this was I was actually trying to save these rails. And when I say save them, just disconnect them from the bed. In reality, it probably would have been easier to pop this off, then cut everything, you know, prop it up nice and safe, and get underneath of it and prop it up so you can make each individual cut, not on the frame of the truck. But I only know what I know, and I can admit this probably was not the most efficient way to do this, but I'm this far into it and we're getting really close. I found a bunch of padding in the shop and just stuffed it between the cab and this just to be careful. I'll probably start using the chain now and pulling away from the cab just so we can do as little damage to the truck itself as possible. And when I say as little, I mean absolutely none. Good deal. We have absolute separation on one side. Full separation on side 2. This baby's ready to come off. There we go. Getting some space here. She's coming off. See what I mean? So from here, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go home. I got a junk removal job I gotta go take care of, or go quote. So what I think I'm gonna do is come back later with a jack stand on this side and then a jack stand on that side. And when I say jack stand, I mean like a floor jack. We'll jack this up somehow. That way we get it, you know, just like a couple inches off the frame. And then I'll use a chain in the Mini, because all I have is, some of you guys are gonna say, well, just use your skid steer. I don't have my skid here, so we're only gonna use the Mini. And we'll put a chain here and on the other side, or probably on the bottom of the bed, something stronger. That way then I can just lift it up, like I said, just a few inches, and then we'll just drive the truck. Trevor drove by. He came in and he said I was crazy, so now he's here to spot me. So I didn't go home and get jack stands. That junk removal job looks pretty good. Really excited for it. But now, instead, I crossed some chains so we could have a really good lift point. I have no idea if that's really gonna be center. Likely won't be. But the goal is just to get it about 4 inches off the bed. And then from there, we will probably take off and then drive out from underneath of it. but there's a couple of things that I'll probably get hung up on, so we might have to readjust a little bit. The big goal here is for it just not to swing out anywhere and hit something, so we can hope for the best. We're getting darn close. Don't you wish we had the skid here? We need the skid so bad. I'm being stubborn. I want to see this off, but we're risking everything to get it off now. We got this bad boy barely hanging on now. So what we're gonna do is Trevor's gonna get her started. We're just gonna take her outside and let it fall off the rest of the way. Safest bet. All right, Trevor's gonna nurse this bad boy out here. We're living on a prayer, boys and girls. Outside without incident. That's what I'm most happy about. Here we go. By an inch, we're off. Trevor knows the drill here. She's suspended. Looky here. Starting to look like a roll-off already. Look at that. That's awesome. I'm loving it. Woo! All right, I'm gonna get some blocks under that real quick. That way we can let water run off of it. And we're gonna get this in the shop again. Looking good. I love that hiss. So now we're at the decision-making process. There's a lot of things I want to do. I think first off, this is going to be chrome. I think we're going to get some chrome fenders, kind of that Peterbilt style on here. I think that would look really cool. And then we move on to the rail system. Not a lot of roll-offs use this C-channel frame, but it is nearly the exact width for a roll-off frame and almost the right height or length. The only things we have to work through are kind of this notch section here that we need to kind of recess back into the frame or raise the height of these rails. And then also the length. The length is just a little too short. It's like 6 inches to 8 inches off the ground of where I want it to be. The cool thing is if we actually got rid of this leaf spring system here in the rear and turn these into bags along with the drop axle here in the back, we really don't have to worry about extending the frame too much because we actually lower the entire truck when we wanted to pick up a dumpster. That way we don't have more of a sailboat out the back of the truck, which I really like the idea of. Once I get past some of the cosmetic things like what I want the wheels to look like, you know, the actual function of the roll-off, we can get as crazy as we want. We can end up actually replacing the motor here, do a Cummins swap, which is something I've always wanted to do. I'd love this thing to be diesel, but I also love the sound of a nice deep like V8, that growl you get from it. So I do love that.
It's not even that loud. Kind of sounds like a Prius, honestly.
You don't think it's that loud?
Nope, not at all, honestly.
So we will fine tune that sound, but it definitely got that throaty V8, which I love. My brother made a point, until we're pulling something and all of a sudden all you're doing is breathing in exhaust fumes, you have no back pressure, and you can't hear anything for, you know, the next 22 hours. So if you follow the channel, you know I've been talking about this ever since I got this thing, and I figured the only way it was gonna get done if I started cutting into it and then there was no turning back. So we got that part out of the way. Now it's just a matter of making those decisions, deciding what direction we want this thing to go, you know, what we want these wheels like, what we want these axles like, what we want the rear end like, what we want the motor like, what we want the roll-off setup to actually function like. So drop in the comments all the ideas you have as you see this come together. And hopefully in the next few months, this starts getting cleaned up and looking pretty. Go ahead and fry me in the comments. Did we ruin this truck? Do you see the vision for this truck? Or do you have a completely different idea? Go ahead and let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one.